Join us and congratulations. It's quite a smashing win. So what now? When are you going to run for a federal seat?
Well, first things first, I'm just really excited and honored to have been selected by the membership. It's an incredible honor. And now the work begins in terms of building with the existing caucus. And in terms of a seat, what I've said before is there's been other great leaders like Jack Layton who were elected as leader of the party and didn't have a seat and were able to take the party to historic heights. So I'm hoping to follow in those footsteps. I'm comfortable with the fact that I don't have a seat now, but I'm also open to counsel. If there's good advice around a seat that makes sense, that there's an authentic connection, then I'm open to suggestions.
One of the advantages of having a seat in Parliament, I guess, is you do get paid. Is the party going to give you a salary while you're waiting?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this salary with the party, and once we work out the details, I'll make sure that that's made available.
Aren't you now putting yourself in a bit of a difficult spot, though? You're denying yourself the chance to confront the Prime Minister in question period, and you're kind of hoping that reporters will cover your activities elsewhere outside Parliament. It's a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
Well, I'm confident that the issues that matter to me, the priorities that I have, like inequality, climate change, reconciliation, and electoral reform, I can bring those issues up in the House through the incredible MPs that we have, and then use my time to take those ideas and issues out into the community. So there's a way to work with the House and use the important tools of the House, but also use the important tools of getting out and putting the message in front of Canadians.
Well, if you're getting out and putting the message in front of Canadians, how are you going to bring the party back to, you just mentioned the historic highs that Jack Layton brought the party to after the 2011 election, lots of seats in Quebec, where there are strong feelings against, for example, wearing religious symbols, which you do. Isn't that going to be a problem?
Well, what I found is it's not my experience. When I go to Quebec, I find that the people of Quebec are open-hearted, open-spirited. It's one of the most progressive provinces in Canada with low tuition fees and affordable daycare. It's a province that's very open to the social democratic and progressive values that we have. So I'm confident that if we lead with the values and policies that speak to the people of Quebec in terms of issues that matter, that we will not only maintain our seats in Quebec, but we will grow.
There's another issue that might be a difference, though. You're all for inclusiveness. I know that, but what do you say to Quebecers and a lot of other Canadians, I guess, who don't think that the government should be allowing illegals to come across the border at places like Laval, where there was a turnout of about 300 self-proclaimed ultra-nationalist protesters? That's not going to make it easy for you, is it? Because you'll be running against a stream of opinion that's against these illegals coming across the border.
Well, I think that we need to acknowledge that people are in difficult positions around the world, and Canada has a position of leadership where we can help people, we can welcome people in, but there's also an economic advantage for us. We know that immigration isn't just something that makes our country more diverse, it actually is something that fuels our economy. We actually need people to address the fact that we don't have the population growth to sustain the economic development that we need. So we actually need immigration, and we're seeing people coming across the States who have gone through different processes to become an immigrant in the States, and these are people that would benefit our society. So I think that there's an important advantage that immigration has, and people that are fleeing persecution that cross the American border to Canada could be people that might actually enhance our society, not just culturally and diversity-wise, but actually economically.
Every leadership campaign leaves some bruised feelings, obviously. You've got some issues about caucus unity I suppose you'll have to address. Nikki Ashton has questioned your leadership over your support for the Manitoba NDP leader, Wab Kinew. Pierre Nantel has said he may leave the NDP caucus and sit as an independent if Quebec's views on religious neutrality are not respected. How would you close these divides?
Well, I've made it very clear that with respect to gender justice, I absolutely, unequivocally believe survivors. I believe Terrey Hart, and I'm a committed advocate of supporting the work that Nikki has already done in raising these issues of gender justice. With respect to Pierre Nantel, I've said very clearly that Quebec is a province that I find incredibly important, not just politically, but on a personal level. The reason why I chose to learn the French language was because I actually saw in the struggle of the people of Quebec a lot of the language issues that my parents had. And I think it's so important that our country really celebrate bilingualism. It's so important that we actually celebrate French language has made this country a better country.
I want to ask you finally about the fact that you have long identified throughout your career with the grievances of the Sikh community against the Indian government. And you supported, for example, labeling the 1984 terrible riots in Delhi as a genocide of the Sikhs. Some people go further than that, don't they? Do you think that some Canadian Sikhs go too far when they honor Talwinder Singh Parmar as a martyr of the Sikh nation, when they put up posters of him as a shaheed, a martyr, when he was the architect of the Air India bombing? Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, I think it's so important that we really clarify a misconception that exists. There has been a lot of work and seems to be creating a conflict that's between Hindus and Sikhs. And for me, that's something that really offended me. I grew up with a lot of close friends and dear family friends that were from the Hindu faith that told me stories of how they actually put themselves at risk to save their Sikh neighbors. And so for me, one of my goals was to erase this false narrative of a Hindu-Sikh conflict. And what I really believe in...
Forgive me, but you could do that right now by saying, no, it isn't appropriate to put up posters of Canada's worst ever mass murderer. As a martyr.
Let me make sure we...
Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, let me just clarify a point here. It's so important that we rid this notion that there's ever been a conflict between Hindus and Sikhs. It's never been the case. We've been living in existence as neighbors.
Third time of asking. It's not a hard
let me just
question.
I'm just finishing my sentence.
Third time of asking. Is it appropriate to put up
Sorry,
posters?
I'm just going to finish my sentence. So the community has lived together, coexisted in peace and harmony, and we need to celebrate that. So naming something a genocide takes the blame off of a community and puts it on the government. That's the facts. It was a government that initiated this. There's been great reports that point that out. There's been a lot of investigations and commissions that really clarify that it was the government, not the people. And I think that we need to make sure that we never inappropriately accuse the people of doing something when it was not their fault. This is something that's always been a government initiative and not the people. And so that's what I really believed in, making sure it was named a genocide and not a riot.
What about putting up posters of Parmar, the architect of the Air India bombing, as a martyr? Is that appropriate, yes or no?
So it is so unacceptable that the violence that was committed, the heinous massacre that was committed, is something that Sikhs, Muslims, Hindus all denounce. The violence that was perpetrated against innocent Canadian lives is something we all denounce. I regularly denounce it on the anniversary. It's something that we all collectively are opposed to. There is no question about this, that innocent lives were killed, and it is completely unacceptable. It needs to be denounced as a terrorist act.
So you won't denounce those posters of Parmar?
I don't know who was responsible, but I think we need to find out who's truly responsible. We need to make sure that the investigation actually results in a conviction of someone who's actually responsible. And we need to, as a society, collectively, unequivocally denounce any time innocent lives are lost. That is something unacceptable. All Canadians stand together, united against any forms of violence, terror against Canadians, and in fact against anyone around the world.
I have to leave it there. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it, and congratulations on your win.
Thank you very much.
Jagmeet Singh, the new NDP leader.